The folding chairs in the high school gym creak under the weight of proud families. Red, white, and blue bunting drapes from the basketball hoops. A banner reads, "Honoring our deployed heroes," in block letters that someone spent too much time making perfect. I sit in the back row, 3 empty seats between me and the nearest person. My hands rest flat on my thighs. I don't applaud when they call my brother's name. Staff Sergeant Jake Langley, United States Marine Corps, deploying to Kuwait. The crowd erupts. My mother stands, tears streaming, hands pressed to her heart. My father's chest puffs out like he's the one wearing the uniform. Jake steps forward, crisp and proud, accepting handshakes from local officials who've never held a rifle. I remain seated. My arms stay crossed. The ceremony continues around me. Speeches about honor and sacrifice. A pastor blessing the troops. Families wiping their eyes and taking pictures. Normal people doing normal things for their normal heroes. I study the scuff marks on the gym floor, count the ceiling tiles. Anything but watch my brother collect praise that should have been shared. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Connor will now address our deploying Marines. A tall man in dress blues approaches the microphone. His ribbons tell stories I recognize, Iraq-Afghanistan campaigns that matter. He speaks about duty and brotherhood, words that once meant something to me. The crowd hangs on every syllable. I check my watch. When the formal remarks end, families surge forward. Kids climb on their fathers' backs. Wives straighten already perfect uniforms. The gym fills with the sounds of pride and goodbyes. I stand to leave. Excuse me. Colonel Connor appears beside me, his eyes fixed on my left forearm. The scar runs from my wrist to my elbow, a jagged line of raised flesh that no amount of makeup can hide. I usually wear long sleeves. Today I forgot. "That scar," he says quietly. "Kandahar convoy, right?" My breath catches. "Sir, the pattern. Shrapnel from an IED blast." His voice drops to a whisper. "Wait, you're the one who stayed behind." The gymnasium noise fades to white static. 8 years of silence crack open like ice on a frozen lake. "I'm sorry, sir. I think you have me confused with someone else." He studies my face, then my scar again. No, I don't think I do." My mother appears at my shoulder, her smile strained. "Jessica, sweetheart, aren't you going to congratulate your brother?" Colonel Connor's eyes shift between us. "This is your daughter." "Yes, this is Jessica. She's had some challenges since her service." The word challenges hits like a slap. I've heard it before. My mother's polite way of explaining why her oldest daughter doesn't attend family functions, why she doesn't talk about her military service, why she sits alone at the back of ceremonies. "What was your unit?" Colonel Connor asks me directly. "I was a communications specialist, 3rd Infantry Division." His jaw tightens. "Kandahar Province, 2016. "Sir, I really should—" "You held the line." His voice carries the weight of someone who's seen the reports. "You stayed behind to cover the retreat." My mother's face goes pale. "Colonel, I think there's been some confusion. Jessica wasn't involved in any combat situations. She was discharged for—" "Ma'am." He holds up his hand. "With respect, your daughter was in that convoy. I was in the final truck. I saw her position." The gymnasium tilts. Conversations around us fade to nothing. Jake appears beside our mother, his face a mask of panic. "Is everything all right here?" Jake's voice is steady, but his eyes dart between the colonel and me. Colonel Connor looks at my brother, then back at me. "I need to make some calls. There are records that need to be reviewed." He hands me his card. "Ms. Langley, would you be available to meet this week? I think there are some things that need to be corrected." I'm Jessica Langley, the oldest, the quiet one, the one they said ran. They let that lie stand. For 8 years. But I didn't run. And today, someone finally remembered. Kandahar Province, Afghanistan. 8 years ago. The convoy moves through the valley like a metal snake, 8 vehicles carrying supplies to Forward Operating Base Mitchell. I'm in the 3rd Humvee headset, crackling with routine check-ins, watching the barren landscape roll past my window. "Mongoose 1, this is Mongoose 3. All clear on our 6. My voice steady, professional. Jake rides 2 vehicles ahead in the lead truck, his first deployment as a Marine. Mine too, though I've been in country 3 months longer. Communications specialist, they call it. The person who keeps everyone connected when the world goes to hell. The mountains rise on both sides of the road like sleeping giants. Too quiet. Even the local chatter on the radio has stopped. Mongoose 1, we've got dead air on local channels. Recommend increased vigilance. Copy that, Mongoose 3. Keep your ears open. The explosion comes from nowhere and everywhere at once. The lead vehicle disappears in a cloud of smoke and twisted metal. The IED's blast wave hits us like a physical wall, throwing our Humvee sideways into a ditch. My ears ring. The taste of copper fills my mouth. Contact IED on the lead vehicle. Small arms fire erupts from the ridgeline. Muzzle flashes wink like deadly stars from behind every rock, every piece of cover. The ambush is perfect, coordinated, designed to trap us in this valley with nowhere to run. I key my radio through the chaos. Mongoose Base, this is Mongoose 3. We are taking heavy fire, grid reference 41 SPQ TOW 849-67234. Request immediate air support and medevac. Lead vehicle is down. Static answers me. Our driver Martinez slumps forward over the wheel. Blood spreads across his uniform in a dark stain. Our gunner Patterson returns fire from the turret, his weapon chattering in short, controlled bursts. Martinez is hit, I shout into my headset. Patterson, we need to move. Can't, they've got us bracketed? Every time I move, they light me up. Through the smoke, I see Jake's vehicle. It's overturned, burning. Figures move around it, our guys pulling the wounded to cover behind the wreckage. But the enemy fire is too intense. They're pinned down. Mongoose Base, this is Mongoose 3. We need immediate extraction. Multiple casualties, vehicles disabled. Still nothing but static. The radio tower on the ridge must be down. We're on our own. Hastings, our medic, appears at my door. His face is streaked with soot and blood. Radio's working, intermittent. The relay tower's probably been hit. I'm going for the lead vehicle. Jake's team has wounded. It's too exposed. They'll cut you down. Then cover me. He disappears into the smoke before I can stop him. I watch him sprint across 30 meters of open ground, zigzagging between bullet impacts. He makes it to the overturned Humvee and immediately starts working on someone I can't see. The enemy fire intensifies. They know we're trying to consolidate, trying to pull our people together. Every time someone moves, the valley erupts with gunfire. Fall back to the tree line. The order comes from Sergeant Williams somewhere in the smoke. I can see the rally point, a cluster of rocks about 100 meters east. Cover. A defensible position. One by one, our people begin moving. Wounded soldiers supported by their brothers, equipment abandoned in favor of lives. Jake appears through the haze, helping carry someone on a stretcher. But Hastings is still exposed, still working on the wounded by the lead vehicle. Hastings, we're pulling back. He looks up, nods, then returns to his patient. The enemy has the ridge, has the high ground. In 30 seconds, they'll adjust their fire to the new position and everyone will be caught in the open. I grab my rifle and spare radio batteries. Where are you going? Patterson shouts from the turret. Someone has to maintain communications. Keep them talking to base. You can't reach the relay from here. I can from the ridge. It's a lie, but it's a lie that might save lives. I sprint toward the overturned vehicle where Hastings works. Bullets snap past my head, kicking up dirt geysers around my feet. The distance feels infinite, like running underwater. I slide into cover beside him. We need to go. Can't move him yet. 2 more minutes. We don't have 2 minutes. The wounded soldier is barely conscious, his leg twisted at an impossible angle. Hastings works with practiced efficiency, but the enemy fire is getting closer. They're zeroing in on our position. Go, I tell him. I'll cover the withdrawal. Jessica, no. We go together. Someone has to maintain communications. Keep the line open for medevac. I set up behind the engine block, the only solid cover left. My radio crackles with intermittent transmissions as I adjust the frequency, trying to reach our base through the interference. Mongoose Base, this is Mongoose 3. Emergency extraction needed. Grid 41 SPQ 10849-67234. Multiple casualties. A faint response breaks through the static. Mongoose 3, say again your status. Mongoose 3 is maintaining communications. Friendlies withdrawing to Rally Point Bravo. Need immediate air support and medevac. I watch our people reach the tree line. Safe. Jake's silhouette appears among them, still helping carry wounded. They made it. The enemy fire shifts toward my position. They've figured out where the radio calls are coming from. Hastings drags his patient toward the tree line, but he's moving too slowly. The wounded soldier is dead weight, and the medic is exhausted. A sniper's bullet catches Hastings in the shoulder. He spins, drops to one knee, but keeps moving. The wounded soldier falls from the stretcher. Another shot. Hastings crumples beside his patient. Hastings! I lay down, covering fire, trying to suppress the sniper's position. But I can see blood spreading beneath him. Too much blood. Mongoose Base, this is Mongoose 3. We have a medic down. Repeat, medic down. Need immediate extraction. The radio crackles. Mongoose 3, can you reach Rally Point Bravo? I look at the distance, 50 meters of open ground. The sniper has a perfect angle. The moment I move, I'm dead. But Hastings is still breathing, still alive. Negative, Mongoose Base. And maintaining communications from current position. Will continue to relay. A bullet punches through my left arm. The impact spins me around and I land hard against the engine block. Blood soaks through my sleeve, but the radio still works. Mongoose Base, this is Mongoose 3. My voice comes out weaker, now harder to hear. Langley still holding position. Tell my family. Tell them I didn't run. The world tilts sideways. The radio slips from my hand. Darkness. When I wake up, I'm in a hospital bed in Germany. Clean sheets, white walls, the antiseptic smell of safety. A doctor explains that I lost a lot of blood. That I'm lucky to be alive. But the visitor who comes next isn't lucky at all. There's been some confusion about your service record, the officer says. Questions about your actions during the ambush. What questions? Whether you maintained your position or abandoned it. The word hangs in the air like a death sentence. Abandoned. Within a week, I'm processed out. Medical discharge. The official report makes no mention of staying behind, of covering the withdrawal, of maintaining communications while wounded. Jake receives a commendation for his actions during the ambush. His photo appears in the local newspaper back home, the headline reading, "Local Hero Saves Lives in Afghanistan." My name appears nowhere. 6 months after returning home, the VA office smells like disinfectant and broken dreams. I sit across from a counselor who's younger than me, her degree hanging crooked on the wall behind her desk. She wants to talk about my adjustment issues. Have you considered reaching out to other veterans from your unit? Sometimes connecting with people who shared the experience can help. There's nothing to connect about. Jessica, the report says. The report says I abandoned my position. She glances down at the file. Yes, but... Then there's nothing to discuss. I leave before she can finish her sentence. At home, my parents' house feels like a museum dedicated to someone else's war. Jake's commendation hangs framed in the living room. His dress uniform is displayed in a shadow box. Local newspaper clippings cover the refrigerator like proud parent wallpaper. My discharge papers sit in a shoebox in my childhood bedroom closet. For months, I accept the silence. Accept that I'm the daughter who came back wrong, who disappointed everyone, who couldn't measure up to her younger brother's heroism. I take a job at the hardware store, keep my head down, try to disappear. But late at night, alone in my room, I can still hear the radio crackle. Still feel the weight of that headset. Still remember the last transmission I made before everything went dark. I know what I did. I know what happened. So why doesn't anyone else? 2 years after returning home. The Freedom of Information Act request takes 4 months to process. When the envelope finally arrives, I carry it to my car before opening it. Something about reading classified documents in my parents' driveway feels wrong. The after-action report is 37 pages long. Most of it is redacted black lines covering sensitive operational details. But I can read enough to piece together the official story: IED attack ambush, coordinated withdrawal to Rally Point Bravo, successful extraction of all personnel. I'm mentioned on page 12. Communications specialist Jessica Langley abandoned her position during enemy contact, requiring additional resources for extraction. One sentence. 8 years of shame distilled into 23 words. But something's wrong with the document. The formatting is inconsistent, like pieces have been cut and pasted together. Page numbers skip from 11 to 13, then back to 12. There are 2 different fonts used in the same paragraph. I drive to the county library and ask the librarian about military records research. She's a veteran herself, Air Force, and she recognizes the signs of a doctored report immediately. This has been edited, she says, pointing to the inconsistencies. See how the spacing is different here. Someone made changes after the initial draft. Is there a way to find the original? Depends. Sometimes the drafts get archived separately, especially if there were multiple revisions. You'd need to request the complete file, not just the final report. The second FOIA request takes 6 months. When it arrives, I drive to the lake outside town before opening it. Somewhere private where no one can see me fall apart. The original draft is 41 pages long. On page 12 in clean, unedited text, I read, Communications Specialist Jessica Langley maintained her position to provide covering fire during the withdrawal phase. Despite sustaining a gunshot wound to her left arm, Specialist Langley continued to coordinate communications with base operations until losing consciousness. Her actions directly contributed to the successful extraction of wounded personnel, including Corporal Jake Langley and Medic Robert Hastings. I read it 3 times before the words sink in. My name was in the original report. My actions were documented. Someone removed them. The editing trail is buried in the file's metadata, but it's there if you know how to look. 3 revisions made over a 6-week period. The final changes approved by a reviewing officer I don't recognize. But attached to the revision requests are supporting documents. Letters from family members requesting clarification of the report. Concerns about potential negative impact on career prospects. Request to protect the privacy of family members. The signature at the bottom of the primary letter makes my hands shake. Margaret Langley, my mother. I sit in my car by the lake until the sun sets, reading through the communications trail. Phone calls to local veterans organizations. Meetings with military liaison officers. Carefully worded requests for minor edits to protect the family's privacy. She didn't just stop believing me, she erased me. 4 years after returning home, the rain pounds against my apartment windows like machine gun fire. Every storm takes me back to Kandahar, to the sound of bullets hitting metal. I've learned to recognize the signs, the sweating palms, the racing heart, the need to find cover. Tonight's worse than usual. The knock on my door comes just after midnight. I look through the peephole and see Jake standing in the hallway, soaked through his eyes, red-rimmed. Jess, can I come in? I haven't seen him since his welcome home ceremony 2 years ago. He's grown into his uniform, carries himself with the confidence of someone who's earned his place in the world. The golden child who never disappoints anyone. What do you want, Jake? I need to talk to you. I let him in because he looks broken, and despite everything, he's still my little brother. He sits on my couch, water dripping from his jacket onto the floor. For a long time, neither of us speaks. There's a reporter, he finally says, from the Herald. She's been asking questions about our deployment, about what happened in that convoy. My blood turns cold. What kind of questions? About you, about why your story doesn't match the official report. My story. Someone talked to her, said you were a hero, not a... He can't finish the sentence. Not a coward. I never said that. You didn't have to. He looks up at me, and I see the little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. If she prints this story, if people start asking questions about the report, you'll lose everything. My career, my reputation, my future. Everything I've worked for. The rain keeps falling. I think about the original report sitting in my filing cabinet. About the truth that could destroy him and restore me. What do you want me to do? Don't talk to her, please. If you give her your side of the story, if you show her any documents you might have, he breaks down completely. I'll lose everything. I watch my brother cry on my couch, this decorated Marine who's afraid of a small-town reporter, this hero who's built his entire identity on a lie. Jake, do you know what really happened that day? I know what the report says. Have you ever read the original draft? There was only one report. No, there wasn't. I could show him, right now. Walk to the filing cabinet and pull out the pages that would prove everything. The pages that document his sister's heroism and his family's betrayal. Instead, I make him coffee and let him tell me about his fears. About the career he's built, the respect he's earned, the life he's created from the ashes of that ambush. When he leaves at dawn, the rain has stopped. The reporter calls me 3 times over the next week. I never answer. Her story never runs. So I didn't. I protected you. even after what you took. Present day, 3 days after the ceremony. The VA center smells like burned coffee and industrial carpet. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. I've avoided this place for 8 years, but Colonel Connor's words keep echoing in my head. You held the line. Maybe it's time to stop running from the people who might understand. The PTSD support group meets in a windowless room with folding chairs, arranged in a circle. A banner on the wall reads, "Safe space for healing," in cheerful letters that feel like an insult. 8 people sit scattered around the circle, each maintaining their own invisible perimeter of personal space. I take a seat near the door. Always keep an exit route. The group leader, a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Patricia Mills, welcomes everyone and begins the session with the usual platitudes about shared experiences and healing journeys. I tune out most of it, focusing instead on the exit signs and counting the ceiling tiles. Would anyone like to share something they've been struggling with this week? A young man with a prosthetic leg talks about nightmares. A woman in her 40s describes panic attacks in grocery stores. Normal veteran problems. The kind therapists have handbooks for. I'm about to leave when I notice him. He sits in the back corner, separate from the circle notebook balanced on his knees. His hair is grayer than I remember, his face carved with lines that weren't there 8 years ago. But the hands are the same, steady, careful, the hands of someone who's held together broken things. Hastings, the medic I watched fall beside me in Kandahar. The man whose blood I saw spreading across Afghan dirt. The ghost I've been carrying. Our eyes meet across the room. His pencil stops moving. The notebook slides from his lap to the floor. For a moment, we're both back in that valley, back in the smoke and chaos and the terrible mathematics of who lives and who dies. He's older, thinner, hollow-eyed, in the way that only comes from surviving something you weren't supposed to survive. But he's alive, breathing, real. Dr. Mills continues facilitating the group discussion, but her voice fades to background noise. The room shrinks until it's just the two of us, connected by a shared truth that no one else in this circle could possibly understand. He reaches for his notebook, writes something quickly, tears out the page. When the session ends and people begin filing out, he approaches my chair. Up close, I can see the scars. A line across his forehead where shrapnel carved its signature. His left hand trembles slightly, nerve damage probably. The kind of wounds that don't show up in medical citations. He hands me the folded paper without speaking. I open it. His handwriting is shakier than it used to be, but the words are clear. I remember, you stayed. The paper crumples in my grip. 8 years of carrying his death, of believing I failed him, of replaying that moment when he fell beside his patient. 8 years of wondering if I could have done more, moved faster, made different choices. I thought you were dead, I whisper. He writes again, almost was. 3 months in Germany. They said you were dead too. What? Another note, official word was you abandoned your position. Died during extraction. Heard it from another medic in recovery. The room empties around us. Dr. Mills tidies up her papers, pretending not to notice our silent conversation. She's probably seen this before, veterans finding each other across the wreckage of shared trauma. Hastings reaches into his jacket and pulls out something wrapped in gauze. He places it in my hands like he's transferring something sacred. I unwrap it carefully. Inside is a unit patch from the 3rd Infantry Division, the colors faded and stained. Dark spots that could be dirt or oil or blood. The fabric is torn along one edge, frayed from whatever explosion separated it from its owner. This is yours, I say. He shakes his head, writes, found it after. Thought you should have it. I turn the patch over in my hands. Such a small thing to carry so much weight. But I understand what he's giving me, proof that I was there, that I mattered, that someone else remembers the truth. Why didn't you ever speak up about what really happened? His pen hovers over the paper for a long time before he writes, no one asked. By the time I could talk, the story was already written. But you saw. You know what I did. You saved us, all of us, gave us time to get out. The words hit harder than bullets. For 8 years I've carried the weight of believing I failed, that my choices cost lives instead of saving them. Even the original report, clinical and distant, couldn't give me what this man's simple acknowledgement provides. Validation, witness, truth. I wasn't crazy. I say more to myself than to him. He writes one final note. Neither was I. We just didn't know the other made it. We sit in silence for a while. Two survivors of the same nightmare, holding pieces of a story that only we remember correctly. Outside, the world continues its normal rhythms, but in this room, in this moment, the past finally has witnesses. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't alone. I just didn't know he made it. 2 days after the VA meeting, Colonel Connor's office sits on the second floor of the Reserve Center, a building that smells like fresh paint and military tradition. The walls display the usual collection of flags, certificates, and photographs of men in uniform shaking hands with other men in uniform. I sit across from his desk, Hastings unit patch heavy in my jacket pocket. The burned headset rests in a paper bag at my feet, a relic I've carried for 8 years without knowing why. Thank you for coming, Ms. Langley. Connor pours coffee from a thermos, his movements precise and practiced. I know this can't be easy. You said you were there, in the convoy. He nods, settling into his chair. Final truck. Tail end Charlie, we called it. Last vehicle in the formation. Then you saw what happened. Some of it. He stares into his coffee cup like it holds absolution. Not enough. The silence stretches between us. Outside, Marines conduct drill practice, their cadence calls echoing through the windows. Normal sounds of military life, the kind that used to comfort me. I've been carrying something for 8 years, Connor finally says. Guilt, regret, the kind of weight that changes how you sleep. We all carry things. Not like this. He looks up, meets my eyes. I was 26 years old, first lieutenant fresh out of officer candidate school. That convoy was my first real combat mission. I wait. In the military, confessions have their own rhythm. When the lead vehicle got hit, everything went to hell instantly. IED, then small arms fire from the ridgeline. Textbook ambush, perfectly executed. He stands, moves to the window overlooking the parade ground. My truck was far enough back to avoid the initial blast, but we took fire immediately. My driver wanted to advance help with the wounded, but I ordered him to maintain position. By the book, you understand, secure the rear, prevent enemy flanking. Smart tactical decision. Maybe. But from our position, I could see the whole battlefield, could see our people pulling back to Rally Point Bravo, could see the medic Hastings trying to evacuate wounded from the lead vehicle. His voice drops to barely above a whisper. And I could see you. The words hang in the air like smoke from a distant fire. You were behind the burning Humvee laying down covering fire. I had binoculars, could see your position clearly. You were wounded, I could tell by how you moved. But you kept fighting. Then why? Because I was 26 and scared and following orders that seemed more important than individual lives. He turns from the window. My commander radioed for a head count. I reported all vehicles accounted for, all personnel either extracted or KIA. You listed me as killed in action. I thought you were. The amount of enemy fire focused on your position. It seemed impossible that anyone could survive it. I remember that fire. The way bullets sparked off metal, the way the air itself seemed to burn with incoming rounds. From his distance through binoculars, it probably did look like certain death. But you weren't sure. No, I wasn't sure. The admission costs him something. I can see it in the way his shoulders sag, the way his hands clench and unclench. We pulled back to base, filed our reports. I wrote what I thought I saw, that communications specialist Langley was killed in action at her position. But that night I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about those binoculars, about what I might have missed. Did you go back? Next morning, took a patrol to sweep the area. He returns to his desk, pulls out a manila folder. Found this. Inside the folder is a photograph, a burned piece of equipment, twisted metal, and melted plastic. But I recognize the shape, the distinctive curve of the headpiece. Your radio headset, still smoking when we found it. I reach into the paper bag and pull out the real thing. 8 years later, it still bears the scars of that day heat damage. Bullet holes, the unmistakable evidence of survival under fire. Connor stares at it like he's seeing a ghost. I brought it back to base. Planned to include it in my report to document the find. But by then the official story was already written. You were listed as abandoned your position, medical discharge for psychiatric reasons. So you said nothing. I told myself the truth didn't matter, that you were alive, which was what counted. That correcting the record wouldn't change anything for anyone. He opens another file, pulls out a stack of papers held together with a rubber band. But I kept the evidence. Every piece of documentation from that day. Photos, radio logs, witness statements. Even the original draft of my report before I was told to clarify certain details. My hands shake as I take the bundle. Proof. Real documented proof of what happened that day. Why now? Why wait 8 years? Connor sits heavily in his chair. Because I saw your face at that ceremony. Saw the way you sat alone while your brother received applause for actions that were only possible because of your sacrifice. He leans forward, his voice intense. And because I've spent 8 years watching you disappear, saw you at the hardware store, head down invisible, heard the stories people tell about the Langley daughter who couldn't handle deployment, watched your family celebrate your brother while pretending you didn't exist. They had their reasons. No, they had their excuses. He stands again, begins pacing. I made a choice 8 years ago to protect my career instead of telling the truth. Your family made a choice to protect your brother's reputation instead of fighting for yours. Everyone made choices, and you paid the price for all of them. I clutch the headset, feeling its familiar weight. What happens now? Now I make a different choice. He pulls out his phone, dials a number. General Morrison. This is Connor. I need to discuss a service record correction from 2016. Yes, sir. The Langley case. He looks at me while he talks, his expression determined. You didn't run, Jessica. You held the line. You saved lives, including your brother's, and you did it while wounded and alone. He ends the call. I'm sorry we left you behind. I hand him the headset. Can you get the audio files, the original radio transmissions? Already working on it. Should have them within the week. For the first time in 8 years, I feel something I'd forgotten existed. Hope. 1 week later, the email arrives at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'm sitting in my living room, staring at late-night television without really watching it when my phone chimes with the notification. Subject: audio file recovery. Confidential from Colonel Connor, USMC.mil. Jessica. The audio restoration is complete. File attached. Listen when you're ready. Semper Fi, Connor. My thumb hovers over the attachment for 10 minutes. 8 years of silence about to be broken by my own voice speaking truth from the past. 8 years of doubt, shame, and questions that ate at me in the dark hours when sleep wouldn't come. I pour a glass of water, turn off the television, and sit in the darkness of my living room. The only light comes from my phone screen as I press play. Static fills the room. The familiar crackle of military radio communications overlaid with the distant sound of gunfire. Voices calling out grid coordinates, requesting medevac, reporting casualties. The chaos of battle compressed into digital audio. Then I hear it. My own voice, thin and distorted, but unmistakably mine. Mongoose base. This is Mongoose 3. Emergency extraction needed. Grid. 41S PQ. 12849. Sheet is 67234. Multiple casualties. The transmission is clearer than I expected. The audio technicians did good work filtering out interference and background noise. I can hear the urgency in my voice, the professional calm of someone trained to communicate under fire. Another burst of static. Then, Mongoose 3, say again, your status. Mongoose 3 is maintaining communications. Friendlies withdrawing to Rally Point Bravo. Need immediate air support and medevac. I remember this moment. Remember watching our people reach the tree line, watching Jake help carry wounded soldiers to safety. Remember the relief of knowing they'd made it out of the kill zone. The audio continues. Radio chatter, gunfire, the distinctive crack of sniper rounds. Then my voice again, weaker now, strained with pain. Mongoose base. This is Mongoose 3. We have a medic down. Repeat, medic down. Need immediate extraction. Even through 8 years and digital compression, I can hear the change in my voice. The way it wavers slightly, betraying the wound in my arm, the blood loss starting to affect my thinking. Then comes the transmission I've carried in my memory like a splinter. Mongoose base. This is Mongoose 3. Langley still holding position. Tell my family. Tell them I didn't run. My voice breaks on the last word. In the recording, you can hear the gunfire intensifying, the enemy focusing their fire on my position. You can hear the fear I tried so hard to hide, the knowledge that I probably wasn't going to make it out. But you can also hear something else. Determination. Resolve. The voice of someone who chose to stay behind, who made a conscious decision to hold the line so others could live. The transmission cuts to static, then silence. I sit in my dark living room, tears streaming down my face. But for the first time in 8 years, they're not tears of shame or regret. They're tears of relief. That voice, my voice, tells the whole story. The fear, yes, but also the courage. The wound, but also the choice to keep fighting. The knowledge that I might die, but also the determination to make it count. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't mistaken. I didn't abandon my position. I held the line. The audio file is time-stamped, authenticated digitally, signed by military communications specialists. Irrefutable evidence that my last conscious act in that valley was to maintain communications and coordinate the extraction of my fellow soldiers, including my brother. I play the file 3 more times, listening to my own voice speak truth across 8 years of silence. Each time the words hit differently. The first time I heard vindication. The second time I heard pain. The third time I heard something I'd forgotten. I possessed pride. My phone buzzes with a text from Connor. Did you listen to it? Yes, I type back. What do you think? I think I remember who I used to be. Good, because I'm forwarding this to the Army Review Board tomorrow morning, along with all supporting documentation. Time to set the record straight. I set the phone aside and walk to my bedroom closet. In the back, behind clothes I never wear, sits the shoebox containing my discharge papers. I haven't opened it in 3 years. Tonight I pull it out and spread the contents across my bed. Medical discharge forms. Final fitness reports. A letter thanking me for my service signed by someone who never knew my name. And at the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, my Bronze Star recommendation that was never submitted. I'd written it myself as required, documenting my actions during the ambush. It was supposed to be reviewed and forwarded by my commanding officer. Instead, it disappeared into bureaucratic limbo when my service record was clarified. I read through it now, remembering the young woman who wrote these words. Despite sustaining combat wounds, Specialist Langley maintained her position to provide communications support and covering fire during tactical withdrawal operations. Her actions directly contributed to the successful extraction of wounded personnel and prevented additional casualties. Clinical language for an unclinical moment. Military speak for choosing to stay behind when everyone else was leaving. 2 weeks later, an official envelope arrives in my mailbox. Department of the Army letterhead, thick paper that means something important. Inside is a certificate freshly printed bearing today's date. The Bronze Star Medal is awarded to Communications Specialist Jessica M. Langley for exceptionally meritorious conduct in ground operations against an armed enemy in Afghanistan. Specialist Langley's distinctive accomplishments are in keeping with the finest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon herself, her unit, and the United States Army. Beneath it, a personal note from Connor. 8 years late, but not too late. The record has been corrected. Your family will receive copies of all documentation. You held the line. Now everyone knows it. I hang the certificate on my living room wall, right where I can see it every morning when I wake up. The silence is finally broken. 3 days before Jake's deployment to Kuwait. The knock comes at 9:30 p.m., soft and hesitant. Through the peephole, I see Jake standing in the hallway, still in his dress uniform from some official function. His face looks older than it did at the ceremony, carved with lines that weren't there before. I open the door without speaking. Can I come in? His voice is barely above a whisper. I step aside. He enters like he's walking into a courtroom where the verdict has already been decided. He stops in front of my living room wall, staring at the Bronze Star certificate. For a long moment, neither of us speaks. The silence stretches heavy with 8 years of unspoken truths. I heard the tape, he finally says. I figured you would. Connor sent it to the whole chain of command. Along with the corrected report, the witness statements, everything. I settle into my chair, watching him struggle with words that should have been spoken years ago. I read what you actually did that day. His voice cracks slightly. What you did for all of us. For me. I did my job. No. He turns to face me, his eyes red-rimmed. You did my job. You stayed behind so I could get out. You took the bullet that was meant for me, Jake. I was terrified. The admission comes out in a rush. When the shooting started, when everything went to hell, I froze. For maybe 10 seconds, but I froze. You were the one calling in coordinates, organizing the withdrawal. I was just following orders. He collapses into the chair across from me. his dress uniform suddenly looking like a costume he's borrowed. But when we got back to base, when they debriefed us, I let them think I was the hero. I let them write reports that made me look brave and you look like a coward. You were 19 years old. So were you when you stayed behind. The comparison hangs between us. We were both kids, both scared, both trying to survive something we weren't prepared for. But only one of us chose to sacrifice for the other. I got a commendation, Jake continues. My picture in the paper, a promotion, a career built on your sacrifice. And I got a medical discharge and 8 years of silence. Why didn't you fight it? Why didn't you burn me down when you had the chance? I think about that night 4 years ago when he sat on this same couch soaked with rain and desperation begging me to stay quiet about a reporter's investigation. I think about the choice I made then and all the choices that led to this moment. Do you remember that night you came here when you were crying about the reporter? He nods, shame coloring his cheeks. You were terrified, not of the enemy, not of combat, but of losing everything you'd built. Your career, your reputation, your future. You were more afraid of the truth than you'd ever been of bullets. I was a coward. You were human, I leaned forward. And in that moment, when you were at your weakest, when you were most vulnerable, I made a choice. To protect me. To be strong for both of us. Because that's who I was, even if no one remembered. Jake wipes his eyes with the back of his hand, the gesture making him look like the little boy who used to ask me to check his closet for monsters. I don't deserve forgiveness. I'm not offering it. The words hit him like a physical blow, but I continue before he can respond. I'm not offering forgiveness because I'm not the one who needs to forgive you. You need to forgive yourself, and you need to decide who you want to be going forward. I stand and walk to my bedroom, returning with the burned headset. The metal is still scarred, the plastic still melted from that day in Kandahar, but it's also the only physical proof of what really happened in that valley. Take this with you, I say, placing it in his hands. He stares at it like it might explode. I can't. This is yours. Not as proof, as memory. I close his fingers around it. So you remember that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to act despite the fear. Jess, you're deploying to Kuwait. You're going to lead soldiers into situations where they'll depend on you to make the right choices, to be strong when they're weak, to sacrifice when sacrifice is required. He nods, understanding starting to dawn in his eyes. That headset will remind you that heroism isn't about getting credit. It's about doing what's right even when no one's watching, even when no one will remember. Jake stands the headset cradled in his palms like something sacred. What if I fail them? What if I'm not strong enough? Then you'll learn what I learned. That strength isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and staying anyway. He moves toward the door, then stops. The commendation they're giving you, it should have been yours from the beginning. But it wasn't, and that's okay. How is it okay? Because 8 years ago, I made a choice to hold the line. Not for recognition or medals or glory. I held the line because it was the right thing to do. The Bronze Star doesn't change that. It just makes it official. Jake opens the door, then turns back one last time. I'm going to be better. I'm going to be the leader you were that day. I know you will. After he leaves, I sit in my living room looking at the empty space on the wall where the headset used to hang. For 8 years, it was proof of my service, evidence of my sacrifice. Now it's something more important. It's a reminder for someone who needs to learn what courage really means. And maybe, just maybe, it will help him become the hero he's always pretended to be. 2 months later, the auditorium at Fort Hood smells like fresh paint and nervous energy. 60 new recruits sit in rows of folding chairs, their uniforms crisp, their faces young and eager. They're the same age I was when I first deployed, full of courage they haven't yet been asked to prove. Colonel Connor introduces me from the podium, his voice carrying the weight of military formality. Today we're honored to have communications specialist Jessica Langley, Bronze Star recipient, speak about leadership under fire. I walk to the front of the room carrying a small speaker and my phone. No prepared speech, no PowerPoint presentation. Just the truth finally given voice. My name is Jessica Langley, I begin. 8 years ago, I was deployed to Afghanistan with the 3rd Infantry Division. I want to share something with you that I've never shared publicly before. The room falls silent. These young soldiers lean forward, sensing that whatever comes next will matter. Combat isn't like the movies. It's chaos. It's fear. It's making choices with incomplete information while bullets are flying and people are dying. Sometimes the right choice looks like the wrong choice. Sometimes heroism looks like cowardice. I hold up my phone. I'm going to play you an audio recording from a firefight in Kandahar province. The voice you'll hear is mine transmitted while I was wounded and alone, providing cover for my unit's withdrawal. I press play. Static fills the auditorium. Then my voice, thin and distorted, but unmistakably real. Mongoose base, this is Mongoose 3. Emergency extraction needed. Grid, 41S PQ 112849-67234. Multiple casualties. The recruits sit frozen, listening to authentic combat communications. No Hollywood explosions, no dramatic music. Just the crackling reality of soldiers calling for help. Mongoose 3 is maintaining communications. Friendlies withdrawing to Rally Point Bravo. Need immediate air support and medevac. I watch their faces as they process what they're hearing. These aren't actors or special effects. This is real combat, real fear, real courage captured in radio transmissions. Mongoose base, this is Mongoose 3. We have a medic down. Repeat, medic down. Need immediate extraction. My voice in the recording grows weaker, strained with pain and blood loss. But it doesn't break. It doesn't quit. Then comes the final transmission. Mongoose base, this is Mongoose 3. Langley still holding position. Tell my family. Tell them I didn't run. The audio cuts to static, then silence. The auditorium remains quiet for 30 seconds. 60 young soldiers absorbing the reality of what they just heard, someone their age, making the choice to stay behind, to hold the line, to sacrifice for others. Finally, a young woman in the third row raises her hand slightly. When I nod to her, she speaks barely above a whisper. Ma'am, that's the bravest thing I've heard all year. I don't respond immediately. Can't respond. The weight of her words, the recognition I'd waited 8 years to hear, settles over me like a blanket. Thank you, I finally say. But bravery isn't about recognition. It's about doing what's right even when no one's watching, even when no one will remember. I look across the room at these young faces, these future leaders who will face their own impossible choices. Some of you will deploy. Some of you will face situations where you have to choose between your safety and someone else's life. When that moment comes, remember that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite the fear. The question and answer session lasts 20 minutes. They ask about combat stress, about making decisions under fire, about dealing with the aftermath of traumatic events. I answer as honestly as I can, sharing lessons learned through pain and silence. When the session ends, recruits file out quietly, many stopping to shake my hand or offer brief words of thanks. Their youth reminds me of who I used to be, full of conviction and untested courage. Colonel Connor approaches as the auditorium empties. That was powerful, Jessica. Those kids will remember this for the rest of their careers. I hope so. The recording. It's being added to the leadership curriculum. With your permission, other units will hear your story. I nod. The silence is finally broken, not just for me, but for everyone who needs to understand what real courage looks like. I gather my things and head for the exit, but stop when I see a familiar figure standing near the back of the auditorium. My mother, Margaret Langley, stands by the wall, still wearing her church clothes from Sunday service. Our eyes meet across the empty room. She's aged in the months since Jake's deployment ceremony. Her hair is grayer, her shoulders more bent, as if carrying invisible weight. But her eyes are the same, the eyes that once looked at me with pride before disappointment replaced it. We stand 20 feet apart, mother and daughter, separated by 8 years of silence and pain. Neither of us moves. Neither speaks. I see her eyes well up with tears she's too proud to shed. Her lips part slightly as if she wants to say something, but no words come. There's no apology in her expression. No dramatic breakdown or tearful reconciliation. Just recognition, acknowledgement, the understanding that she was wrong, that I was right, that 8 years of erasure can't be undone with words. I nod slightly, a gesture that says, I see you. I understand. We don't have to talk about it. She nods back, her chin trembling with emotion she won't allow herself to express. Then I turn and walk toward the exit. Jessica. Her voice stops me at the door. I turn back. She's still standing by the wall, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. "I'm proud of you," she says simply. 3 words. 8 years late, but not too late. "I know," I reply. Outside the auditorium, the Texas sun feels warm on my face. I walk to my car, knowing that my mother came to hear my story, came to witness my truth, came to understand what she had helped erase. She didn't say sorry, she didn't have to, she showed up. That was enough. For the first time in 8 years, I drive home feeling complete. Not because I received an apology, but because I no longer needed one. The truth had spoken for itself. 1 month later, I walk through the halls of my old high school, past the trophy cases and class photos that tell the story of small-town America. The community board near the main entrance displays the usual collection of local achievements and military honors. But today there's something new. A framed item catches my eye, a scorched battle map, half burned at the edges, the kind used for tactical planning in combat zones. The paper is yellowed and brittle, marked with grid coordinates and unit positions. Beneath it, a small brass nameplate reads, "This map saved more than lives. It saved the truth." I smile for the first time in years. Some heroes don't get medals. Some don't even get remembered. But some of us, we survive long enough to whisper back. If they've ever rewritten your story, if your silence ever made you feel erased, drop a comment. You're not alone anymore.